This tiny slot in the back of this double channel hip rail can make a big difference on your high tunnel builds, and it might even save your greenhouse one day. Let me tell you how. Whether you're researching what hip rail to use on your DIY project, on your high tunnel hoop house or greenhouse, or maybe you're researching what to replace your rotted lumber hip rail with in the future, regardless of any of that, it needs to be stated before you buy your double channel hip rail, make sure there's a slot on the back side of it. If your double channel hip rail doesn't come with a slot on the back side of it, the only way you're going to be able to secure your hip rail to the bows of your structure is with self-tapping tech screws. And while I love tech screws just as much as the next greenhouse guy, the hip rail is a major structural member for your high tunnel hoop house or greenhouse. And as a major structural member, you might want to have it held to your structure with more than just tech screws. Now, for example, single aluminum channel, which goes over your end bows, is going to be secured every 10 inches to 12 inches and 1 inch from each of its ends. So that's secured pretty well. For double channel hip rail, you're only able to attach it with tech screws at every point at which you have a bow. And most bows for most of these structures are spaced either 4 foot, 5 foot, or 6 foot apart from each other. So in that scenario, depending on the length of your structure, you're really counting on just a couple dozen tech screws to hold your double channel in place and defend yourself against 50-mile-per-hour winds. So, maybe you didn't have a chance to roll down your large greenhouse door and wind just rips right into your structure and it's hitting against the interior face. Tech screws on their own might be more likely to fail than if you had tech screws on the exterior structure holding the double channel in place, and then 2-hole straps, bolts, and nuts on the interior. Basically, this slot gives you a second line of defense against hard winds on your structure. And really, it's more likely to keep your hip rail against the side of your structure in horrible winds, and it's more likely to defend against the failure of this hip rail, which, if that happens in a giant windstorm, you're going to lose your top cover. And top cover greenhouse plastic, depending on the size of your structure, can be quite expensive. So this little slot can save you a lot of money possibly. And we all know roll-up sides are daunting to put on, but if your hip rail fails, you're bound to have trouble with your roll-up sides. You're gonna have to redo your roll-up sides, do repair work on them, and really that just stinks. So if this all sounds good, but you're a little wary of having to install tech screws on the outside of your structure, and then 2-hole straps with bolts and nuts on the inside of your structure, we have a video showing how to put that together. And I'll link to it in the description. I won't go into depth here, but it's actually not that difficult if you were thinking about taking it on. So if you're in the design phase of your next high tunnel or greenhouse, or you're looking to upgrade your high tunnels to get rid of the lumber that's on the hip rails because it's rotting out, really strongly consider a double channel hip rail that has a slot on the back of it. It might just save your greenhouse. So if a hip rail with a slot on the back side of it is what you're looking for, I'll have a link to it in the description. And a lot of different greenhouse manufacturers out there have different types of double channel. I'm sure a lot of different greenhouse manufacturers have this slot. So if there's one local to you and you can drive somewhere and pick something up, maybe they have this laying around too. But it's worth considering if you're looking to avoid headaches in the future with regards to wind and possible wind damage. All right, thanks for watching. If you like watching season extension videos that can save you time and effort, consider subscribing to our channel. Thanks for watching.